We want to talk a little bit more about our gear and why we made some of the choices we made. So, for example, the helmet, which is by Giro. The things that were important to us about this helmet, all helmets are required to meet the same safety requirements. So if that is your minimum standard, then you've got that made, no matter what helmet you buy. This one, one thing, and not necessarily in order of importance, we wanted a bright color. We wanted visibility. We wanted to be seen. There's two other features that were important to this helmet. Comfort, of course, is one of them, and one of the ways that you enhance comfort is by having this little dial adjustment in the back to set the correct tension on your head as it hits the perimeter. And then the other thing is we picked this helmet because it has a lot of ventilation openings, and we knew that we were going to be traveling in some weather that was up and over 100 degrees, so having that cooling effect was important to us. Those are the things that made this helmet important. Also important, and there are riders that don't ride with a rear view mirror, but I can't imagine not having that, particularly if you're road riding, because you often will have traffic behind you and you need to be able to see. So this mirror, which we had bought specifically for this ride, and all the details of our equipment are in our equipment list, is zip tied onto the helmet. And what I liked about it is adjustable any way that you want it, out, in. It's got a nice size mirror, so you can really see well, and I found that was very convenient. You can also get mirrors that attach to your glasses, and there's other mirrors that attach to your helmet, but this setup worked out really, really well for us. A couple things that we considered in buying the shoes. These shoes happen to be Pearl Izumi, but it wasn't so much the brand that was important as, once again, the features. So I have had shoes in the past where they didn't have a lot of support, and when I'm riding long or hard, my feet started hurting, especially on the ball of my foot. So these shoes have a carbon fiber sole in them, and that really distributes the weight or the force from the pedal stroke throughout my foot. They never hurt me, and I actually got them new for this ride. They do have the BOA, which I wasn't sure I was going to like, but worked out really well. The one thing about these shoes that I would change is the tongue of the shoe, instead of always sitting where I might like it to sit, would tend to move toward my insole, and so a lot of times my sock showed. It didn't cause me any pain or discomfort. Maybe my socks got a little dirtier. It wouldn't keep me from buying these again, but it was just kind of something I thought was a little quirky about this shoe. But again, the main reason that I liked it was because of the very strong sole inside that distributed the force of the pedal. The third thing that I wanted to show you is the handlebar bag that we used. It's an Arkell bag. It is the larger size, and the reason that we got the larger size is I actually got a little bit wider handlebar just so that I could make this fit, and this has been very convenient. It comes on and off the bike really easily, so that was nice because this is kind of the purse. And I wanted to make sure that if I was in a place that I was a little uncertain about what the area might be, I could carry it in with me. It does have a Velcro cover built in, so you can cover that backside. It also has a strap, so you can put it over your shoulder and carry it. That was a nice feature. I liked the two side pockets. For me, I always like to have something in my mouth to kind of keep my spit wet. And for me, it's Starburst. For Ed, he likes Skittles. So this was my good side, this was my trash side. And anything that I needed to have immediately available, I put in this front pocket. So you can see this stuff looks pretty worn. Why? Well, because it's the end of our ride, and these are the things that we had. A couple of key items here. Sunscreen, we used sunscreen every day. This one, which is Supergoop, I used for my face, and I liked it because it didn't get in my eyes and it didn't make my eyes water if I was sweating. This other one, which is from Neutrogena, Sunscreen 70, used it every day on our arms and legs, any visible skin that wasn't covered by this. And again, this was a dry touch. It just wasn't slimy or stinky like some of the others that I've seen. I had my wallet. This is a very simple one, and I really purged. I carried the minimal amount of stuff so that I had a driver's license, some charge cards, and a little bit of money. The other thing that we did that we learned, because I lost my wallet once and Ed lost his wallet once, is that we exchanged information. So I had some of his identification in my wallet, and he had my duplicate identification in his wallet, so that if we lost a wallet, we weren't totally up a creek. We picked up a couple of things. We kind of picked purple around the perimeter as our color. Oddly enough, we found this electric tape on the side of the road and used it for a couple of repairs. Here's another kind of sunscreen. Put one pocket knife. We shared this. We used it. It's got scissors and a knife. It's got screwdrivers and things too, but really the scissors and the knife are the two things that we used the most often for our food or for repairs or for cutting our fingernails. A couple of carabiners. Probably have more than I need, but this worked out well for securing things to our backpacks. We had a supply of lens wipes, and these lens wipes we used every day to clean our glasses. So it just kind of made the world a brighter place. It made it worthwhile. This is pepper spray. Never had to use it, and I'm glad that we didn't. But it was a little bit comforting to have. Sometimes if we were in a dicey area, we made sure we had it in our tent so that we just felt a little bit more protected. Critical for me is some kind of chapstick. We also had some that had sun protection in it. And especially in the Southwest, the area was very, very arid. And so this chapstick came in handy. This little bag, which looks terrible, just had some markers and a few things that were a few backup cleaning pads, just some things that I didn't want to get lost along the way. So that worked out very conveniently in this front part. The main compartment of this bag is quite large, and I liked having a handlebar bag. The downside is I couldn't see my front tire, so I kind of had to judge when I was following Ed to make sure that I was not touching tires with him. But it was very convenient. For me, I was kind of a believer in 5-hour energy. If I was dragging, this was my pick-me-up, especially if I didn't have caffeine in the morning, because I do like my caffeine. Like I said, sunglasses, and I happen to have a spare tube in here, but Ed kept most of the spare tubes. And when I wasn't wearing them, my gloves, as well as food supplies. Ziploc bags are your friends. Ziploc bags are a great way to organize. And they don't take a lot of space. They also were great from a perspective of, if we had something that, if it broke, might make a mess, like jam or jelly or some kind of condiment that we had grabbed along the way, the Ziploc bags kept it from making a mess inside of our handlebar bag. And then the handlebar bag at the top has another zipper compartment. So We did a lot of blogging on the road. Ed had a keyboard that he could plug into his phone. We had earpieces. These bags are not waterproof, so we needed to have covers for them, and we had covers. And we had covers for our phone. Didn't use those very much because although they do keep the phone dry, we pretty much chose not to ride in the rain, and we didn't need those very much. And then the only other things I have in here are some other things I picked up along the way, some stickers. We did buy these hats, these riding hats. We didn't buy them initially because we didn't think we'd need them, and we don't use them as we normally ride. But what we found is when we were headed west and the sun was setting, sometimes it was really, really bright, and that was uncomfortable. So we bought these hats so that we could have just a little bit of a bill, especially on the times that we were going in and out of the sun, sun and shade, sun and shade. And so lightweight, small, it helped. If you have a solar dome, it might help you in that regard as well. So really, everything else in here is kind of a duplication. I had some extra meds in here that somebody gave me that were supplements. And the nice thing about this bag was it was always convenient. It had many pockets so I could get things out of the way that I didn't want to have to touch. Could carry it easily if I needed to. It opens towards you when you're on the bike, so that's perfect. And I would say this just had all the little things that you wanted to reach on a regular basis or very easily. Very convenient to have something like that with you. These are my rear panniers. This one was always on my right side because it has the place for the tent in the back, but we didn't bring two tents. And this one was my left side. Let me get this one out of the way for a minute. My right side is where I chose to put all of my clothes. And the toiletries was kind of the way I remembered that was there. So the nice thing about this is this Arkell bag is the toiletries come out. And whatever toiletries you need is fine. I happen to, once again, I like to use Ziploc bags, so I had spare meds. I had meds in a med pack, shampoo, cream rinse, toothbrush, toothpaste, some Band-Aids, whatever you feel that you need. This was more than enough room. In the small packet under it, I had our Fix-It kit. We'll have a list of everything that's in the Fix-It kit on our site, but basically it was some safety pins, a compass, some extra reflective twine, some clothespins in case we needed to hang things up, and awl, some zip ties, a number of different things that they don't take a lot of space. Truth is, we didn't use most of this, but it was kind of an insurance policy, and it felt good to have it with us. So you can see it all fit in a pretty small Ziploc bag, so that was out of the way. And I accumulated a few plastic bags along the way. Some states won't give out plastic bags, and sometimes they're nice just to put down if you have a dirty surface. A couple extra Ziplocs. The main compartment here was for clothes, and I like to keep my clothes in Ziplocs primarily because it keeps them organized. It also keeps them clean and dry. So I had a couple of things, and I'll explain how I organized things. So this was my day clothes. We had, and it's a larger bag. I had a long sleeve shirt. I happen to have 2 short sleeve shirts. I kept the underwear that I was going to use in here, a pair of socks, a pair of long pants, and a pair of short pants, and they were quick dry so that if we had to rinse them out in a hotel room, we could do that quickly, and a belt. That way, if I knew that I needed to change my clothes from my cycling clothes into my day clothes, all I needed to grab was this bag, and it had everything that I needed. Likewise, at night, if I was going to be just going into someone's house, a warm shower's house, or a friend, or even at the hotel, these were my sleep clothes. So we used long johns, basically, summer weight, pants and shirt. It's kind of interesting. The reason that we do this and our whole body is covered is because, especially when we're sleeping in a tent and we haven't had a chance to shower, this keeps all the gross body dirt away from the sleeping bag. So this was clean. I usually had a pair of underpants in here and a pair of socks. So this bag was always all of my sleep clothes. We did have a fleece, so this was pretty much the only jacket. For a while on the ride, we had puffies where we were going to be in the snow, but that was at the beginning of the ride and we sent them home. Toward the end, we didn't need those, so I just picked my favorite fleece. I can tell you a sweatshirt would have been too heavy and wouldn't have dried quickly. I didn't have that problem. And for me, I liked the 3/4 zip because it gave me some body regulation. So that worked really well. What I'm showing here is that I happen to have the reflective vest, and it's not as bright as it used to be, but it definitely worked really well day and night to make us more visible. And this is just because I have lymphedema, so I have to wear a sleeve. This one had my extra bike clothes, so I would always have one set of shorts on and a jersey, and this would be my second jersey and my second pair of shorts. I can tell you that the shorts that we have have a nice side pocket in them, and I didn't think I'd like it as much as I do, but it's great for putting your phone, especially when I was just wearing a sport bra and a vest because it was hotter out. I didn't have a place to put my phone when we stopped someplace to get something to eat or drink or go to the bathroom, and so that was a nice feature. This bag was kind of all the other stuff. We did bring a bathing suit in case we went to hot springs or to a hotel that had a pool. Some extra underwear. We had four pairs of underwear total. Some extra socks, and for me, I had a sport bra and a regular bra. So it wasn't a whole lot. I actually accumulated a few extra socks along the way because I'm a sock lover. And then this bag, since we had our camera with us, we also had a long lens, and so this is a telephoto, and this is to clean the camera off with some air. So those were just some extra things that fit better in my bag than they did in with the camera gear. The other thing that's on this bag is at the top. So arm warmers, leg warmers. Used those probably more days than not, at least at the beginning. And then the rain jacket. I really like this rain jacket. It's Showers Pass. Things I like about it: bright color, very short in the front, long in the back, so when you're leaning over, you're well protected. Ventilation in the armpit, so you get a little bit of air when you need it. And we opted for the hood that is purchased separately. I keep it in the back pouch here, and that worked well for us too. So that kind of covers what's in my clothing bag. So the rear pannier, again, has the zipper at the top. And on this side, I had a riding jacket for the wind. Really, we got this for the trip, and it worked fabulous. This one happens to be Pearl Izumi. It also can be a vest, but I really only wore it as a jacket, so I never took the sleeves off. And then these are the riding pants, also from Showers Pass. Kind of heavy, kind of hot, but they keep you dry. They have zippers at the bottom leg, and you can adjust the leg width. You can put suspenders or a belt on them. Mine fit me in such a way that I did not need to do that. And they have a pocket on the back hip. So these were very, very functional. In the main compartment, so I was in charge of 2 pairs of shoes and Ed was in charge of 2 pairs of shoes. We could have gotten by with a single pair each. And we did a ride 10 years ago across the country, and we did do that. We each had a pair of Chacos, so they were sandals. And they served us very well. We wanted something that strapped onto our foot so that if we were going to go walking, we could. We wanted something that if we were going to be in a shower, we could. This time, we opted for the lightweight of the Crocs. And the Crocs give us those shower shoes, and they're really great for really great for having in the campsite, just for something to put on. And then, of course, I had a pair too. So we got 2 pairs of Crocs. I got the Crocs because they were less weight than our walking shoes that Ed carried. Sleeping bag in a compression sack. We had summer bags and we had winter bags. We used the summer bags most of the time in the summer, but when it started getting a little bit cooler, we swapped out to the winter bags. They took a little bit more space, but we were opting for comfort. So that's in here, and the compression sack helps to minimize the space that it takes. We have Thermarest Neo Air mattresses, and these, we used to use thinner mattresses when we were younger. These are a little thicker. They were very comfortable and served us very well. So an air mattress, highly recommended. The other thing is showers. So got a shower towel, quick dry. This one's maybe bigger than you need, but it was what they had, and I chose not to cut it in half. I wasn't worried about the weight. What other goodies do I have in here? A little bit of extra toilet paper. And I believe this is a souvenir, so it's just a stick. The other things that we had, this, by the way, can Velcro off and be a fanny pack. I didn't use it that way. I just kept some extra toiletry items in here, some extra meds, some extra chapstick, butt paste. Can't say this is a bad idea. We actually didn't need it that much this time. So that was just kind of my catch-all. In this lower area, I had a backpack and I had the covers for the panniers. So, this was a lightweight backpack that didn't take much space. In this back area, so that it was easy access, toilet paper in a Ziploc bag to keep it safe from the weather. We also had some hand sanitizer and a cup. Inside the cup, I kept my headlamp. Very, very useful when you're camping outside, or even if you're riding after dark, in addition to the light that's on your bike. That pretty much covers the gear that I had on my bike.
I'm going to talk about my gear that I had, which is very similar to a lot of Michelle's gear. One of the things I want to point out about the helmets and some other things I'll talk about during our gear, but our helmets are identical. And so one of the things that we accidentally did when we attached the mirrors was put the cable ties in different orientations, where these stick out and Michelle's stuck down. That helped us differentiate when we're looking at helmets instead of having to try them on. Later on in the ride, one of the cable ties broke, which it turned out to be a better idea to use different color cable ties that helped us distinguish between the helmets, at least me. So on my handlebar bag, I kept my bandana up front so that I could wipe my forehead and other parts off during the ride without having to dig for it. In reality, I hardly ever touched it. And in the front pocket, I kept various things. I had some hand lotion and the sunscreen for my face. Had multiple packets of the lens cleaners that we used every day. That made it easier to get to. And I had the small pocket size pepper spray that we never had to use. I also had in here my Carmex weather guard with SPF 15 in the chapstick part, but I also like to use the salve lotion. It doubles for me for a couple things. One is it's very soothing for my lips, which tend to get sunburned, but also if I have little cuts, it's all about keeping it moist, and so I would put that on any scratches or things like that. Inside is the best part, perhaps, or the main use of my handlebar bag, and that's the camera. So as we mentioned, we carried a long lens, a 70-200, and then in the other side we had just the DSLR with the 24-70. We could have gotten by perhaps with a single wider zoom, but this is how we chose to do our equipment. We had a local company, actually a company in Indianapolis, actually make the foam insert for this so that it wouldn't fall apart. We'd used in the previous ride a pluck and pick type foam, and that deteriorated just because it's made to fall apart. And on the top, we had this foam pad up top. For me, up here, I kept spare batteries for the camera and my rain cover for the handlebar bag, and then I kept the memory for the camera, which we went through quite a bit of it. This was the food pannier, and I'll start in the top here. Up top is where I chose to keep my rain covers for my panniers. So that was a handy place to get to, and I organized them the same way each time. Rear pannier rain covers and front pannier rain covers were always in here in this order, because when it starts raining or when you're trying to beat the rain, I always wanted to know what to grab first. This is simple two-pocket pannier. So in the front, we kept a lot of food that we went to daily. So things such as Michelle likes Starburst. We had Skittles in here, Payday bars, and little Bobo snacks in here. And then in the main pannier, we kept more of the long-term food that we had. And right now it's very empty because it was at the end of the ride and we did our best to empty it out. But this really was just a large food sack for us. We had things such as peanut butter and a jar down here of teas and things, and we could cold soak freeze-dried food that we did carry. And just whatever food we were carrying went into this pannier here. This pannier is what I called the office, and in the top of this one I kept my reading glasses and my sunglasses, and this is where my regular glasses would go into here all the time, so I'd know where everything was. In here, in the front here I kept a lot of my clothing that I would wear, arm warmers and things. We had a larger pepper spray in case we needed more than just the little pocket or purse size, and I kept my air horn in here. Now, someone in Texas told us we would encounter a lot of dogs in West Texas, which is the primary reason why we got these, but we did not run into that problem. So in the front pouch here, I had my riding vest, but this was almost always on me when we were riding. I kept my, if in the morning we would often start with a jersey on and the riding vest, but it would be warm enough that eventually we would take this off very, very early actually, and I'd put it into this pocket. And here's my, similar to Michelle, I had my windbreaker jacket, my Pearl Izumi, and so I have my leg warmers, and I'm looking at my leg warmers and arm warmers. I have cold hands, so I actually have 2 pairs of gloves. These are Windstop gloves, and I would often ride with these over my riding gloves, which are also in here, and in cool days. But I also had Showers Pass waterproof rain gloves for much warmer or much colder and even wet weather that I made sure was handy there. Now, because we were riding in the desert Southwest quite a bit, we also needed to carry water. So we had these little zipper pouches here to hold our water bags. What we used were CNOC water bags. If you backpack or if you're familiar with backpackers, these are very popular for backpackers. We carried 4 of these so that we could actually, they're 2 liters each, so we could carry 8 liters of water just in these bags here. I also have kept my build hat down in here, and a couple of pins and other additional loose stuff sacks for things that we never ended up actually needing them for. In the main compartment here, this is really the office part of it, I carried my backpack that we used when we were carrying extra water. We would put the water in here and just strap it to the top of our rear racks on the bicycles, and then we'd use it for when we went to buy food and many other things for laundry. We had 2 bowls that we used, and we would often make breakfast in a hotel room. We'd buy a dozen eggs. We learned early on not to buy large or jumbo eggs. We'd buy small, and we just cook up as many as we needed. And then we had the laptop. So inside a zippered bag, a big Ziploc, and then a bubble wrap bag, we had a very lightweight laptop to use, and these are a mouse and the charger for them. We also carried National Parks passport books because we passed a lot of national parks and we wanted to get the stamps from them. So we each had one of our own, and anytime we'd pass a national park, we'd actually go out of our way sometimes, we would get the passport book stamped. We have also one of the things that we carried after about the last 3 months was a Park Tool chain cleaner. Now, we didn't carry this the whole time, but as we were approaching the desert Southwest, when we knew we would not have many chances to do anything with our chain, we want to make sure that we kept it clean. We actually carried chain cleaner in this pannier along with this, and at the end we would clean the chain every basically 500 to 750 miles, and then lubricate the chain about every other day. And that worked out really well for us, because on the chain that we put on in South Padre Island for the next, I think it was 2,000 miles, we had 0 chain wear that we measured. And then the rest of this was basically large stuff sacks, large Ziploc bags and small Ziploc bags that we would use for food or other things throughout, and we would replenish it throughout the ride. One of the things I'd like to point out about these panniers is each of them have a internal Ziploc or internal bag waterproof section that you can unroll and put your things inside of. And as I mentioned, these are my rear panniers. I'm going to talk about them individually. They're very similar to Michelle's panniers, and the difference is I have the large upright tent bag. But one of the things we used to help distinguish between the panniers, so it was very easy to look at, is we put on different color cable ties on the zippers, and mine were yellow, Michelle's had blue on hers. So I'll talk about my equipment pannier first. Much the same as Michelle's, and I'll just go down through what I have in here. So up top, I have my rain pants. I use a blue stuff sack. I like to keep my rain gear in a stuff sack to make it easier to put away. We also used in here, I have a power bank, an Anker power bank, and this was on the rear of my bike, and if you refer back to that video, you'll remember I had the power cable that went into the top pocket on the pannier. So I plugged it into here and would connect it to my phone when the phone would get low. It also helped because I could charge it in place when I connect the other end of the USB-C to a charger. I had in here loose batteries, a bag of batteries for various things, including the bike computer as well as our tail lights. We had extra tail lights, 2 extras that were removable batteries. The other tail lights that we used most of the time were much brighter and they were rechargeable, but we wanted to make sure that we had a backup in case we ran through all of our tail lights. In the back pouch here, I had similar things. I had a bag of flushable wipes, and interestingly, this bag started with us and it's still got some left. I carried something called HIPAA-Cleanse, which is something recommended by my doctor, and we would clean our sweaty parts, underarms, crotch area, feet, about every 4 days when we had showers, and that would help keep them from becoming slimier, infected, and bothersome. So it's HIBICLENS. So we started using that about halfway through, and that worked very well for us. I carried Dawn dishwashing soap, which had a wide variety of uses. It's very good at cutting grease, and we'd actually use it when cleaning the bikes off. With the chains off. We also carried a Sawyer squeeze for filtering water. We ended up never having to use this because we either carried enough water between water sources, or we carried enough water. We were ready to filter water if we needed to. We had our trowel for use with the toilet paper if we needed to. And then I had very similar thermal insulated cup, and inside of it I kept my headlamp for nighttime use. Now, you'll notice that Michelle and I kept a lot of gear in the same places. It's very important, we felt, to always put our gear back in the same place in the panniers. It's just like backpacking. You want to make sure that you can find stuff quickly, and for us the best way to do that is to make sure that we put it back in the same place all the time. This is a lot of the bike maintenance and repair stuff, and so I'll go through this in a little bit of detail because I carried most of that, the bike repair stuff. So I had a key for the chain locks that we had in here. I had some spare cable ties, a whole lot of moleskin that we never ended up using. In here was our money supply, and we would replenish this, our cash supplies. We used credit card most of the time. That helped us keep track of the expenses, but for when we needed cash, we kept it in here. We had some sunblock in here that we used for heavy duty stuff. These are some backup components that fit different things on the bike. Help connect the bike computer on, the straps here, some of these rings, we bought extra of them. Even had extra cleats for the bike shoes, and I actually lost one of the screws in my bike shoe cleat about the middle of the ride, so I was glad to have the backup. Had some rubber gloves, or not rubber, but protective gloves that help working on chains. We carried this Allen wrench bike tool, which has about every Allen wrench size that you need, and it also has the thing to push the pins out on the chains. We carried a Leatherman knife, pliers. You can carry a lot of different things. This is a multi-tool. And we used a lot of the different tools that were on here. Also in here, I had some black electrical tape and just an assortment of screws and little plastic covers that would help protect the cables on the bikes. And let's see what else I have in here. We carried spare brake pads in case we in case we were out in the middle of nowhere and we were getting metal on metal. And then I think we also carried a little rosary ring in here. And so that's what was in this big zipper here. Down low, I carried more bike components, bike maintenance things. So this is the chain lube that we use. This was Rock and Roll Gold. We started using this in Tampa, and this would be the lube that we use from now on. We did have T9 that we started with, but the Rock and Roll tends to keep it cleaner in our perspective. We had an assortment of rags for cleaning the chain off, and we went through many different rags throughout the course of the ride. We had some super glue that we had to use from time to time. This is the non-foaming type. It's a gel, and that was very handy to use, like everything, when you needed it. We had also brought, after having chain wear issues early on, we got a chain gauge, and we would check the wear once a week to stay on top of it, to make sure that we were not going to have any wear issues with the chain. When we replaced our wheels in Tampa, our bike shop, our local bike shop, Jim's Bike Shop, sent us the hex tool, or the Torx tool, let us put the brake disc back on, and then as well as helped us adjust the brakes, the brake pads. We had also your typical plastic tire changing tools, but one of the things that concerned me with as many flats as we were getting was if these broke, we'd have some problems. And they make metal tools, and so we got 2 of those, and in reality we only needed one or the other, and I think going forward I would carry the metal ones because of their durability. We had also a spare flexible spoke. It's a string spoke that you tension. We broke a spoke near town and we had it replaced by metal, but this also lets you get by with without carrying replacing with a metal spoke. We carried spare tubes, and I like to have unpatched tubes. I like to ride with that. And I'll leave these out, but 2 of the tubes were in here. At one time I had 4 in here, and we've used those. And then we had an assortment of Park Tools repair kits. And so you'll see we have 4 patch kits. At the time we were going through a lot of tubes at one time, and within 1-2 day period we went through 4. I ended up ordering and getting more of those than we really needed. One of the things that to keep in mind is about what you pack. It's the old backpacking saying, which is you pack your fears. So you can see that there's 4 of those. Would you need 4? You really wouldn't need 4, but I was very comfortable having 4. Other things we had were the Park Tool emergency boots. So if you get a large hole in a tire, you can actually patch over it. Now, one of the things we learned is these are temporary patches, and the adhesive can ooze out from around it and grab the tube itself and cause holes in the tubes, and we had that happen to us. Some of what else is in here, we had, of course, Sparemaster links that we never had to use. Additional glueless patches, and let's see, and actually some leftover stuff that's in here from when we didn't have the patch kit. We had a big chunk of rubber, which is for patching regular tires, and we needed to use that with this glue that we have here. So here's the patchless kit, and we had a spare cleat set. I'm not sure that anyone would really carry this, And this was actually resulted when we were changing out shoes and had an extra set that we never got rid of. So that's what was in. Oh, there's one more thing. This is a spare cable that would either be shifting or breaking in case we had a cable break. There's actually 2 of them in here. We never had to get to that. It's actually pretty good because I'd forgotten we had that in there. So that's what was in the outside pouch here. So now I'll show you a little bit of what's in the main pouch. And let me just move this stuff to the side. So I packed mine similar to Michelle. I have in this here our air mattress. And I like quilts in here as a sleeping quilt, similar to a sleeping bag, a little more versatile from my perspective in a compression stuff sack. And then you can probably see in here 2 pairs of hiking shoes. And so that's the way we split up what we were each carrying. I carried the shoes and Michelle had the Crocs. Because we were crossing a lot of space in Texas and we're not sure of how many days we'd go without actually charging stuff, we have yet another power bank in here. And we never, I think once we got down to where we were using this as our last source, but again, we did not really need it. And then one of the things that we were warned about in West Texas was the goat heads, caltrops, the thorny stuff. So we actually got some tube liners from our local bike shop. Only put one on once we had a flat rather than pulling them all off. And we really did never have a problem. So I'm not sure that these are needed, but we did not get rid of them. In the top here, I had my Showers Pass rain jacket, much like Michelle's. And the other thing is I had a belt in here. And you'll notice that the belt is where I can really easily get to it. And that's because my rain pants didn't stay up without a belt. So I needed to make sure that if we were going to put rain gear on, I could get to it right away. Not everyone has that issue, but that was where I decided to put mine. Here is the toiletry bag. Comes off with Velcro and stays in. I have your typical toiletry stuff in here. It's up to everyone on their own as to what they would carry. In this lower pouch, we had our flexible bike locks, bike cables. We brought 3 of them, and there were times when we used all 3. Every time we stopped, we would lock our bikes up, even overnight in a campground where we were the only ones. And it's 2-part theory behind that, or fear, as you might. One is, without the bikes, we don't go forward, and it interrupts our whole trip. The other was, at night, you might think that that's pretty safe, especially if no one's around, but early on in the ride in California, we talked with someone who had ridden across country, and they told us that one night a bear had taken their bikes about 100 yards away. We suspect food and things, but we want to make sure that our bikes were not going anywhere at night. The nice thing about these is they're all keyed the same, and they can be used in series. And then we had in here a bag of straps. We use these quite a bit depending on what we were doing at the time. In this long bag here, and this is one of the things we liked most about the Arkell setup, this is our tent bag. And it carries anything that is long and vertical can fit in here. So for us, we used it for a couple different things, but here you'll see another tire liner just because it fit there. But we carried some extra Tyvek ground cloths just so we could sit on them during the day, and sometimes when the ground was particularly rough, we would put it underneath our regular tent ground cloth, which was there. And then we had our Big Agnes Copper Spur UL2 tent that we've used for several years. And it's a freestanding tent. We prefer freestanding tents. And then we also, when we had our wheels replaced, Jim's Bicycle Shop in Cincinnati gave us 4 extra spokes. We did not need them, but this vertical area was a great place to keep them from being bent. So inside the main compartment here, this is my closed section here. I actually had it packed. I would pack from the bottom up, working my way up, and the last thing that would go in would be my fleece. And you'll recall that Michelle's was neatly folded. Even when I backpack, I stuff, and I would fold this up and stuff it into the top. The second thing from the top was our electronic charging bag. And I'll show you a couple things that we had in here, which are worthy of mention, and you'll notice that when I said you pack your fears, you'll see it in here. So you'll notice we have yet an extra tail rider rear light. This is rechargeable, and that's because we had problems with the tail rider rear lights. In fact, we probably went through twice as many as we have, and we had one of them starting to go bad where they would not hold a charge. So we picked up another one because these are very, very bright, and we really enjoy the protection that they seem to give us. But the reliability is one of the issues we had with this. We had an assortment of straps. So this is for our headlight. We had a strap break. So here's the fear: break a strap, lose a headlight. And another strap for the tail rider light. We used a series. We have a bag full of different types of charging cables: USB-C to C, USB-A to C. We even have the USB to the USB Mini. Just depends on what our gear was that we needed to charge. We had a variation or a bag full of different chargers. So we used an Anker 65 watt 4-port charger with a USB-C and USB-A, a 65 watt charger which was really fast for charging the power units. We had our camera charger here. I'll set this down here. And then I carried a pair of earbuds in here. For our headlamps, the bicycle headlights, we carried backup batteries because they're removable batteries, and a charger just for these AA batteries. So in this bag, we had actually a total of 16 of these types of batteries. 8 were in the 2 headlamps or bicycle headlights, and then 8 were backups in case we could not keep them charged. Finally, one of the things that was recommended to us by one of our hosts was this little FlexTail 1.2 ounce inflator for inflating our air mattress. And it's remarkable. Besides the weight, we actually measured it will do over 21 inflations of the mattresses. And so I know from experience it takes 35 puffs to blow that up. And all we had to do at night when we put the mattress out is turn that on and wait. And that was a big time saver, and just one of the greatest finds we had during the ride. So my next things in here are my typical clothes. Michelle would fold and bag them. I roll, and I would roll them so that they fit lengthwise and would tend to minimize the space that it required. So here I have my sleep clothes, my nighttime long underwear that I would always sleep in. I have a pair of Patagonia pants that are quick dry and very a little bit of spandex, a little stretchy in it, and I really like that. I have my long sleeve bright orange shirt that is quick dry and well vented. These are clothes we'd wear in town, and we never would ride in these clothes. And then I have a Smart Wool wool t-shirt instead of a dry climb or or another type of synthetic. I prefer this t-shirt way over any of the synthetic materials. And then a pair of these are quick dry shorts that I had in here. And then I had I would typically not have 3 pairs of underwear, but over time we've accumulated, and a lot of times not all pairs were clean, so it was depending on how long it was between stops, between hotel stops where we could wash stuff. My rolled up pink swimsuit, and then I have a couple pairs of socks in here. Don't necessarily need all these socks. Probably of all the socks that are here, and these are mostly street socks, I have my pair of wool socks from Giro, and those were much better. We had some, I think, Pearl Izumi, and I prefer those over the Pearl Izumi. Backup riding gear, so an extra jersey, an extra pair of shorts, and then my towel. And actually I have yet another pair of socks that I didn't know I had. So one of the things, getting back to equipment, and Michelle, I don't know if you can see in here, but I'll go through, this became partially an equipment bag also. And one of the things we realized early on when that Park Tool boot leaked adhesive and ruined one of the tubes, and the next tube that went in had the same adhesive exposure. So we realized that we had to make sure we had folding tires. And so these are the Continental folding gator skins. These are the heavy duty hard shell. But because there's two of us, and because we knew we'd be out in the middle of nowhere, if we get two bad ones, maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't, and in fact we never did after that. But so we carried two of these. And remember my comment about you pack your fears. So you'll see that in here I have 4 tubes, and that's the result of having so many flat tires early on, the tubes getting punctured. And as I said, I like to ride with tubes that have not been repaired, whereas Michelle is just as happy with a patch tube. Finally, one of the things that we realized, if our pump went bad and we were out in the middle of nowhere, we couldn't fix a tire no matter how many tubes we had or how many tires we had. So we decided to pick up a spare bicycle pump, and we had this in here. We never needed it, but there were times when we wondered whether our bicycle pump that was on my frame was actually working properly. So we never had that problem, but we had a backup if we'd had that problem. So that is pretty much, that's in fact the extent of all of our gear. We certainly could have ridden with less, and we've used most of what's in here. So you could break this into clothing, maintenance, health, and then let's say emergency type gear, which a lot of this for me falls into. So hopefully this helps you if you're planning a trip of this nature or any kind of a long trip. You can get ideas of what's going to work for you, because it's all about how you'll use the gear and how you pack it and what you're comfortable with carrying. So thanks for watching.